Hello, Grace here. I have not posted a video in over a week, and I want to talk to you about why. Today, I'm sharing something that happened since my last video that has completely upended my whole world in ways I never could have anticipated. This is probably the most difficult video I've ever made, but I know there are others out there who might face similar complex situations. And as always, I want to share my experience in case it helps someone else understand their own journey. On Saturday morning, August 9th, I discovered my ex-partner, Neil, the narcissist, dead in his apartment. I was the one who found his body, along with my son. The person who had systematically destroyed my sense of self for 6.5 years, who had put me through hell in ways I've documented extensively in my book and on this channel. I was the one who walked into his apartment and found him face down on the floor. Now, some of you may be wondering, Grace, why were you even in contact with him? This is where I need to share something that I haven't talked about much publicly, the Hoover attempts that happened after our relationship ended. When Neil and I split and we sold our home, I had no idea where to go and even what I wanted to do. I was deep in the trauma bond. I decided not to rent an apartment. I didn't want to be locked into a lease. I was not in the headspace to commit to that. I needed time to sort out my life, my thoughts, my damaged soul. So what I did instead of getting my own apartment, I chose to travel a little and rent inexpensive Airbnbs month to month, just trying to figure it all out and give myself healing space. Neil moved into a new place, and in what I now recognize as part of his Hoover strategy, he put my name along with his on his new lease. He held a lot of our mutual property in that apartment, and we still had mutual investments that had not been resolved. He made me his beneficiary on his investment account, and he used me as his emergency contact person. All things that created ongoing connection points. He positioned this as being supportive of each other in emergencies. He'd say things like, it would be nice if we could be there for each other when needed. The most significant tie was his dog, Jack. The same Jack who had been my constant companion during my battle with leukemia, who had comforted me when Neil emotionally abandoned me during my illness. Looking back, this was a classic narcissistic strategy, maintaining control through practical necessities while appearing reasonable and mature about the friendship. Neil would travel for work and ask me to care for Jack, and honestly, I couldn't say no to that dog. Jack had been there for me when Neil wasn't. This is how hoovering works. They find the emotional pressure points, the connections that are hardest to sever completely. On August 6th, which was a Wednesday, I called Neil about the registration on one of the cars that I had, which still was registered jointly. He sounded terrible, really sick. He told me he had been vomiting and he felt awful. My natural instincts kicked in, and I asked if I could help, bring food, medicine, whatever he needed. He asked me if I could come and walk Jack, since he was too sick to take the dog out. When I got there, I could see he was genuinely ill. I offered to take him to the emergency room, but he refused. He did agree to let me take Jack to my place until he felt better. I stayed in touch with him on Thursday. Friday was an incredibly busy day for me, but I tried calling and texting a couple of times. My son Oliver also tried reaching out to him, but Neil wasn't picking up his phone or responding to texts. By Saturday morning, Oliver and I were concerned enough to drive over and check on him. I knocked on the door while calling his phone. I could hear it ringing inside, but no answer. I used my key to enter the apartment, and there I found him. I found him naked, face down on the floor. He was dead. I cannot adequately describe the shock of that moment. This person who had been such a massive, destructive force in my life, who had raged and manipulated and systematically tore me down, was suddenly just gone, reduced to this vulnerable, lifeless form on the floor. The first thing I did was call 911. Then I had to call his family in Michigan. I had to be the one to tell his elderly father that his son was dead. I had to coordinate with the coroner, deal with the police, handle the immediate practical matters, because I was the emergency contact. I was the one there. There's something surreal about becoming the point person for someone's death when the same person spent years trying to convince you that you were worthless and crazy and the source of all the problems in the relationship. The emotions that flooded through me in those first hours and days were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. There was shock, obviously, but there was also this strange mixture of grief, relief, guilt, and profound confusion. I grieved not for the man who had abused me, but for the person I thought I knew in those early days, for the potential that never existed, for the dreams that had been so violently shattered. I grieved for the man I fell in love with, even though I knew he had a darker side. But there was also an undeniable relief. The part of my brain that had always remained hypervigilant, always slightly on guard for his next Hoover attempt, for his next manipulation, that part I could finally put to rest. He couldn't hurt me anymore. He couldn't try to worm his way back into my life. That chapter is now definitely closed. And then came the guilt. Guilt over feeling relieved. Guilt over the complicated emotions. Guilt over the fact that despite everything, I had still been there in his final days, still responding to his needs with compassion. Finding Neil's body taught me something crucial about the healing journey from narcissistic abuse. Despite everything he had put me through, the gaslighting, the rage, the systematic destruction of my self-worth, my core compassionate nature remained intact. When he was sick and needed help, I showed up, not because I was trauma bonded anymore or still under his influence, but because that's who I am at my core. The woman he tried so hard to destroy, the empathetic, caring person, she survived. She emerged from that relationship damaged, but not destroyed. This is something I want every survivor watching to understand. They can manipulate you, they can gaslight you, they can try to convince you that you're the problem, but they cannot fundamentally change who you are at your core. Your goodness, your capacity for love, your compassion, these things are stronger than their abuse. Many of you viewers have left comments about your abuser having passed on. But if you're a survivor watching this, you might be wondering what would happen if your abuser died. Would you feel relief? Would you feel grief or both? Let me tell you, whatever you feel would be valid. These relationships are complex, and death doesn't magically provide closure or erase the trauma. You might be dealing with your own Hoover attempts right now, questioning whether maintaining any contact is healthy. I can't make that decision for you, but I can tell you that my experience reinforced why boundaries are so crucial. Even with the best intentions, maintaining connection with a narcissist creates ongoing vulnerability. The story isn't over. There are more layers to unpack the Hoover attempt that led to this situation and what I've learned about complex grief and how this experience has affected my continued healing journey. So in the next few videos, I'm going to dive deeper into the specifics and what this teaches us about the magnetic pull these individuals can maintain even after we've educated ourselves about this disorder. Thank you for being here with me through this incredibly difficult sharing. It took me a long time to get in front of the camera today, so I appreciate your support. It means everything as I navigate this unexpected chapter. If this video has brought up difficult emotions for you, please be gentle with yourself and practice self-care. That's what I'm going to be doing for a few weeks. And remember, you are stronger than you know.